All right, we're en route to sit down with Abel Ibarra, and we're headed to his shop right now in Ontario, California, and I'm so excited. I mean, he represents the Rotary crowd and the Rotary people, and I'm excited. I've been there for some of his some of the things he's accomplished, and it's gonna be really nice to see him and sit down and talk shop and talk the old school. Must be the place.
What's up?
Haha. How you doing?
Long time no see, man.
I know, it's been a long time.
Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah. Money to buy it and put it away, because if you think about it, Mustang was almost extinct along with Camaro. All the Hondas, Toyotas, Mitsubishis, they were selling like crazy. Nobody was.
Those are your inside.
I know it's like this is what we need to go here in the last one. You know, or that no sneer sitting on our foot. That's no because like this way take other way. Do that at the house. It sucks because I don't have the money to do it, but my house is, I finished paying my house like maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pull the money out of the house.
They'll save you money anyways.
Well, maybe at least half of at home. My cars are all be in one spot. I gotta run it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I took my car set for 20 years. With the people he gave it to, Greg, they fucked it all up. I only got to put 1,000 miles. Oh, they hold on, give me a book of it. Boom, that you have zero.
Really?
For years, yeah. I told you my dad bought it before I was born. He bought it like a year before I was born.
I mean, it's the whole feeling about just raw horsepower under your foot. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Very hard. So many of my gone for something like that.
A lot goes into this. I did one part of a show. The cameras died. I came back, and I forgot to hit record for the audio.
So you did the whole second with no audio?
I did the whole set with no actual like good audio, and then, but luckily these pick up audio, so I like tried to
use that one,
improve on it. So, but all right, guys, welcome back. Another exciting episode of Burning Tires. It is a Buscast. I'm your host Greg Leone, and we are sitting down today with Abel Ibarra, import drag race legend, and so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for giving some time to this this topic.
No problem. Anything for the cause.
Anything for the cause, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're documenting the rise and proliferation of the sport compact. So we're talking about the beginning days, the early days, the days when that wasn't documented, the days that I'm sure that, you know, most of us only have a handful of pictures and maybe a magazine articles and things like that from that era. You know, so we didn't have phones in our pockets. We didn't have access to internet. We didn't have, you know, things on digital. Everything's on digital now. So
I'm actually lucky. I have a lot of recordings.
You do?
CD and VHS, yeah.
Right. Very cool. That's that. You're like a rare you're like a rare version of us, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, I had it in a box, and I sat down with LJ. I guess it'll be a few episodes back. I sat down with LJ Garcia, and he's like, I had 6-7 foot trophies from Hot Import Nights, like best of show, and he's like, I don't know where they went. He's like, I had a whole bunch of them, and he's like, I don't know where it went. Most people.
Yeah, I won EXC, remember?
Okay, yeah.
I won Best of Show one time. I still have that trophy.
Really? Good.
Got to take pride in that one. With all those nice cars that were there to get Best of Show, I got that with the RX-7.
That's impressive.
Yeah, when it was purple, white, and green when I first came out with that scheme,
You were always detailed, so all your cars were always just beautiful.
Well, the way I looked at it, to be honest with you, Greg, is as much money as they costed, I had to keep them up, had to keep them in the best possible shape because it was a lot of money just to trash it, you know. And that was one of the things that I would tell the guys, if you're going to work on it, I need you to be extra careful.
Right.
You know, if you can't be careful, then you don't need to be working on it.
That's true.
At the time, anything that, you know, we were getting fixed on them was a ton of money.
Right.
Plus, it put you downtime, you know, for the races and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you were, you know, and everyone tried, but I think it was like you and Adam were like the top notch. Must be the RX-7 thing. I don't know.
No, I don't think it was that. It's just that, you know, like I said, I stopped going to school. I wasn't going to school. I was doing the car thing, and it started happening so good for me that I was like, you know what, I'm going to really focus this. And it became like, you know how I'll be honest with you, can't say it in no other way. It was an addiction.
Right.
It was like what I dreamt, breathed, and everything. It was an addiction. And I wanted to be the best that I could at what I was doing. And I didn't care what it took.
Right.
You know, if I had to dedicate 23 and a half hours a day to it, that's what I was going to do. And
I think that's what it took to raise that bar like that, you know, and
a lot of people ask me nowadays, mostly customers, you know, well, what do you know, or why are you so confident that this won't work and this will if they say this? I said, look, all manufacturers want to make money.
Right.
So they're all going to tell you a beautiful story.
Right.
I said, in the beginning, I would go to the dyno every day. I think I went to the dyno for like maybe 4 years straight. And the only time I wasn't at the dyno when I was at the track or I was out of town.
Wow.
And I literally tried everything, all kinds of stuff. And that's why I tell them I know what works and what doesn't work and what companies make good products because I tried them all.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it took. It took that level of commitment. And I wasn't the type of guy that if this didn't work, oh, here, I'm going to make it work because it cost me X amount of dollars. Nope. Somebody wants to buy it, fine. If not, it goes in the trash.
Wow. Nice. I mean, that's a lot. That's that high level of R&D that I think everyone coming up in the sport compact community really had to do back then. Because there's no manual, right?
Nope, there wasn't any manual.
You know, and especially in something like a rotary motor, it was kind of like this. There was like this black art to it, essentially. And so I don't think there was even like a very large community, right? Because RX-7s, a rotary community.
Yeah, the rotary community and the RX-7 is huge worldwide.
Right.
But it wasn't so much. It was in Southern California, but it was like really low grassroots.
Right.
People on the street, enthusiasts. They like Mazdas because their parents had them or something, or they had them. But on a level like that, there really wasn't nobody putting that R&D in because it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work and a lot of money. I mean, like I told you, you have no idea how many motors we would take apart. Okay, port it this way. And to this day, I have things in my engines when they're for me, for my race motors, that they're still not doing.
Really? Wow.
They're still not doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how haven't these guys evolved? How haven't they figured them out?
Well, I mean, because I think the era, the mindset from that era was we kept everything to ourselves.
And I think, you know what, and this is going to sound funny saying this, but it's the reality. Technology has made cavemen out of some of these racers now and builders.
I agree.
And let me tell you what I'm talking about.
I agree with that.
Turbo technology, tire technology has evolved so much that your basic engine building and like foundation stuff to make power, make the torque curve and all of that, they have forgotten about that because it's so easy to go from 30 pounds of boost now to 90, 100.
Right.
What's not going to run at 90, 100 pounds of boost?
Yeah,
you know, in the tire tech, you know? And that's actually, I think it's hurt a lot of people and a lot of engine builders in that sense. That the technology has evolved so much, it's so easy.
Right.
so easy to make power. You just turn up the boost.
Right.
And then if it doesn't stay together, well, you throw another motor in, or you figure out, you have I know of some racers that they say they go to the races with 5, 6, 7 blocks. That's ridiculous.
I hear that stuff. I hear that about the Honda stuff too. And they're just destroying them.
And it's not that so much that they're destroying them because the engines can't take it, is because they have zero engine R&D, because they're relying so much on the boost.
Yeah, that's true. But I think at some point, like with some of these 4-cylinders, putting out what Speed Factory doing now is like 2,100.
That's a lot of power.
Horsepower. In like a 2.2 liter or 2 liter. It's like that's insane. And they're running that level of boost. They're running like close to 100 psi of boost.
That's crazy.
And so I think there's a threshold of like even like sleeve blocks, even like, you know what I mean, like they're not holding together. So that's why you're starting to see the emergence of like full billet blocks and
that's
things
one
like
thing
that.
that keeps my hope going, that I need to get back in there. I want to experience that 100 psi.
You want to experience
the 90 psi, even 80.
Yeah.
I'd be happy. I want to experience what 80 psi feels like. Like my car, the highest boost I turned up when I went 215 in Vegas was 38 pounds back then.
And that was huge.
38 pounds. So it wasn't huge, because some of the 2JZ guys at the time, they weren't saying it, but they were running 55, 60 even back then.
Right.
But still not compared to now, where they're running 100 psi. So I just want to experience 80 psi. I want to know what that's going to feel like. That's going to be amazing.
That's going to be amazing.
Because in my little street car, my RX-2, I have it boost by gear, and then like in 4th and 5th gear, it goes up to about 40, 42 pounds.
Right.
That feels pretty gnarly.
42 pounds in that little short wheelbase car.
Yeah.
Right. Well, your R100 is a short wheelbase car.
Yeah, real short wheelbase.
What kind of power did that thing put down?
That thing, believe it or not, when we went 798 at Palmdale, I think we were at, I used to make the most power back then on the Apex seat at 1.85 bar. But I never turned it up that much at the track. I think the most I turned it up was like at 1.55 bar. Okay. And I think the highest horsepower I made back then was like 625 to the wheels.
Okay.
So we were 500-ish when we ran that 798. 798.
But that's not even that much boost. We say 1.5 bar?
1.55 bar.
1.55, that's 20
something-ish, yeah.
Right. That's not that much.
Because even in my RX-7, my FD on alcohol, the highest I ever turned it up at the track was 36, but my fastest passes were around 32, 34, just because I just didn't turn it up anymore. And at the time, I was trying to be like as conservative as I could, round per round, so they wouldn't change the rules on me or anything. Because I went on a pretty good stretch one time. I think I won probably like 17, 18, 19 races straight. So I wasn't trying to push the envelope. So I just turn it up a little more, turn it down, turn it up just enough to get by and try to win.
Because you have another event, and you have another event, you have another event.
Yeah,
the road is long. Yeah,
that's when I think I was running NIRA, IDRC, and Nopi.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Plus the English Town races, the SummerSlam. So yeah.
Yeah, I miss Englishtown.
Mm-hmm.
Have you
I
been?
did too.
Have you been there since they closed it?
No, I haven't been there since they closed it.
All right, so it's super weird. They still have the track, they still have everything, but they paved a figure 8 in asphalt around through the drag strip has a track, and they drift there.
Wow.
They run Formula Drift at Englishtown.
So maybe they left it like that in case they change their mind later. They can.
I don't know. Yeah, because there's like K rails at the end of it, and the track still goes, but there's a bunch of parking.
How about the buildings? Are the buildings still there? The tower?
The tower's still there.
Oh, that's good. Maybe they'll change their mind. That was a great place to race. I still remember the very first time I went there. It was Vinny was still alive, the owner.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got a hold of me. He got a hold of me. He said, "Hey, I heard you're coming down to the East Coast." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be hitting a couple of races down there." He's like, "What's it going to take? I'd like to bring you on a Wednesday or Friday night and do a match race." And at the time, I was cocky. I was like, "Okay, we can work it out." I said, what were you thinking? And I forgot how much he paid me, but he was a very straightforward man. And he said, how about I got this Mustang that's very kind of popular here with the crowd. You want to race that? And yeah, I went there, ran and raced the Mustang and won. I mean, he was a very nice person to deal with. I still remember that. Yeah. I fell in love with that place ever since then.
Yeah, that place is still it's weird being on the track like that, because we do track walk, and it's just like, and these younger generation of drifters, they have no idea, you know, Steph is there, and like I know Ron Bergenholtz is doing the Nitto team, and I think Jojo does some stuff with like the Dean Kearney, the Viper team. So they know, right? But everyone else, I know they're walking this track, trying to figure out how, you know, they have no idea. They have no idea the heritage and like just the records and the, you know, the things that have happened at this place.
That place was fast. When the weather was good, that place was fast. Very fast.
Yeah.
Very good prep.
Right. Definitely. So let's rewind. Let's start back at your origin story. I want to hear about what was your genesis into cars, you know, into like not just sport compact, just into cars in general.
Yeah, well, it's a funny story. So I have two uncles. I don't know. I must have been 6, 7, 8, 9, and they both at different times, a couple of years apart, bought Smoking the Bandit Trans Ams. So I was the oldest of the generation as far as, you know, born from all the sisters and brothers, my mom.
Right.
So obviously I was a boy. They'd come around and visit, and they all lived at our house at one point or another when they came from Mexico. So they'd come and get me in the Trans Am, and we'd go cruising to downtown.
Yeah.
And it turned into cruising until they were racing people light to light, because it wasn't like it is now, super crowded.
Right.
So people would cruise downtown on a Saturday or Sunday, you know, through Broadway and Main and through the tunnels, where like the the market is at.
Yep.
And they start racing, and you know what? Ever since then, I just got hooked. That adrenaline of feeling that acceleration. So one thing led to another. I liked the cars. I was very good studious. You know, at school I always had good grades. And one of my uncles has a car dealership. And he told my mom, he said, hey, why don't you send him with me to my dealer and mechanic shop, you know, the summer of 14 and 15 years old. And when his 15th birthday comes along, me and you, let's buy him a car half and half. And she's like, okay. So I went there, you know, learned how to, started doing, I remember the first thing I did was take tires off. Right. Then he had me do brake jobs. Then one day he's like, we're going to go pick up some cars. And we went, I don't exactly know the place, but I remember Sunland, and there was a auction there. Yeah. He bought 2 Camaro Berlinettas, like the Trans Am style, Smoking the Bandit. Yeah. And I'm like, who's going to take the cars? The tow truck can only take one. He goes, well, you're going to take the other one. I said, Uncle, I've only driven the 510 at the time. Our family car was a 510.
Oh, really? That's a cool family car.
Yeah, 4-door. I've only driven the 510 in and out of the driveway. I was 14. Wow. And he's like, he started laughing. He goes, well, did you do a good job? I'm like, He said, all right, well, get in and follow me. And I remember my hands were so sweaty. I held the steering wheel so tight. And we actually drove on the freeway for like 45 minutes to his dealership in LA. And we made it in one piece. So from there on, you know, I started driving cars, helping them more. I learned how to do brake jobs, oil changes, tune-ups. And yeah, when my 15th birthday came around, there was he had sent me like a picture, and he showed me a Carmen Ghia, and I said, yeah, I love that car. Yeah. But at the time, I think it was a little bit too much, and my mom said, no, that's too much. We need to get him something cheaper. So they end up getting me a 76 Mercury Capri, a Mark II.
Oh, wow.
With the factory option where you could buy it at the dealership and get the flares on it, the big box flares. It was called the Chasteness 3, and I'll show you a picture.
Yeah, yeah.
Not too long recently, I bought one identical like mine off of eBay, and I have it, and I'm going to be working on it.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
was it the 4-cylinder, the big 4-cylinder?
No, 2.8 V6.
Oh, the V6 in it, okay.
V6 4-speed. So he bought me the Capri. I got it. I thought, it was the coolest thing. Little by little, I start telling him I want to do this, I want to do that to it. So the first thing I did, I convinced my dad to bring me to Super Shops. And from LA, we drove all the way to Super Shops out here in Fontana at the warehouse, because the one in Torrance, this was in the 80s.
Right.
In Torrance, didn't have the parts in stock.
Okay.
And I still remember it was an Urson cam and lifters, and I bought TRW forged pistons. So my uncle's mechanic was in the back. I said, hey, if I buy all these parts, will you rebuild the motor and put these parts in? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'll do it. I'm not going to charge you full price, but I'll do it. I'll charge you cheaper. I said, all right. So we put that in there. I got a Holly 4-barrel, got the Offenhauser manifold that they made for that. And I put it in there. And I got the car tuned by some guy. I still remember his name. I think it was Frank or Tom DeTasso. He was over there off of Stadium Way.
Okay.
He had a dyno shop, one of the first dyno shops, and I found him in the Yellow Pages.
That's where they used to drag race too.
Yeah, right around him.
Yeah.
I think it was Frank DeTasso. So I looked in the Yellow Pages. I found the place. I called him, hey, can I get you an appointment? I have this car that runs, but it runs so. Man, I couldn't believe it. I picked the car up from him. He had it for 2 days. I couldn't believe the difference. It was a totally different car. And from there on, you know, I would try to race wherever I could on the street, either going to high school, or going cruising. I used to go, me and my cousins, we used to go cruising Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset. So we do our little things like that. Then we'd keep on going Sunset all the way till we hit Malibu.
It was before the no cruising laws, huh?
Yeah, and that was when, you know, people in Porsches and stuff like that, Corvettes.
Yeah.
I used to spank a lot of those cars.
Because it gets all windy. It's like canyon runs.
Canyon,
Yeah.
So I had a blast doing that. Then one day, you know, I take the car to high school, and in high school I had already beat all the guys with the bugs.
Yeah.
I had beat a couple of the V8 guys that wanted to race, because most of them went after they heard they didn't want to race anymore. And I'm coming out the driveway one day, and I'm lined up on Central and 118th Street. That's in Watts at the light.
Okay.
When all of a sudden this little, like, annoying little sounding little car, white, primer spine, ring, 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 pulls up on the side of me. And then he looks at me and he goes, ring, 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 ring. I'm like, oh, he wants to race. I said, all right, I'm about to show him. So we take off, and I get the jump on him. I'm out of him in first gear, and as soon as he shifts to second, he bunny hopped like a car in front of me. And I hit second, and he's like, I didn't gain anything. And I'm pulling on him a little bit, and then he shifted into third, and he bunny hopped another car. I was like, oh, man, I was pissed. So he kicked my butt that day. Well, he did this 3 days in a row.
What?
So the third day, I finally couldn't take him. I said, hey, man, what do you have in that thing? He's like, a rotary. I'm like, a rotary? What is that? Pull over, show it to me. So he opened up the hood, and all I could see was like an engine that looked like a long transmission with a 4-barrel. I'm like, oh, no wonder it runs. It's got a 4-barrel on it. He goes, oh, yeah, and it's street ported and this and that. He was talking all this stuff, and I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, all right, dang. So later on, about a month later, I met some friends that would go to the street races and stuff. And some of them had Mazdas. That's why I started talking to them. They were Hispanic.
Right.
They had Mazdas. So I would sneak out the house at nighttime. They'd come and get me, and I'd go drive their Mazdas. I started driving their Mazdas, RX2s, RX3s, and we'd go to Florence in Maine, Compton in Maine, 182nd and Western, at Del Taco.
Yep.
And I was driving the cars to them. So that's basically
so what
how
year,
I got
roughly
started.
What year is this? Late 80s?
That was late 80s. So when I was driving the cars for them, that was when I was still in high school. So that was 86, 85, late 85, 86, 87.
Okay. So these are like RX3s,
RX2s, RX2s,
the
RX3.
The primered one was probably like RX2, RX3, something like that. Wow. Yeah.
And then I think in about, I still had the Capri when I was at USC with the Sounds, maybe in 88, 89. One of those guys that had the crew, I had killer sounds in the Capri.
Right.
I put because I love music, even now.
Right.
Music is like my thing. I listen to like music every day. Like I'm into like, trans music, above and beyond that stuff. The
EDC stuff?
EDC stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that.
It's good to work to, yeah.
So not only that, whenever I get a chance, I go to the raves or the clubs. I mean,
really?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
I used to do that all the time when I was
younger. The music is good for the soul.
It is
that
good
helps
for the
a
soul.
lot. It's amazing. So I have always loved music, and I bought a killer sound system, right before I went to USC. So, I would enjoy my drives, and I had Rockford Fosgate, and it was killer. Right. It sounded so good. I remember I used to jam Dire Straits, that one song where the drum roll comes in. Oh, man, it sounded like you were in the studio. So one of the guys, like in 88, 89, he had a Mazda RX2. And, I could tell, he was getting tired of it. It wasn't working out. It wasn't that fast.
Right.
And he told me one day, he goes, man, I'll trade you the RX2 for your sounds. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, yeah, give me your whole sounds, and I'll give you the car running, minus the rims. I said, are you serious? He's like, yeah. I said, can we do it now? He's like, yeah. I said, all right, let's start taking the sounds out.
Wow.
So we took the sounds out, and they stayed right around the corner from Jefferson High School. So I gave him the sounds. He gave me the RX2, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to have a Mazda now. Beat all these guys.
This is your first
I'm
rotary.
Beat all the guys now. So lo and behold, did I get the Mazda, and the shit had a 79, 85, 79 through 80, 12A RX-7 engine, which is like the lowest horsepower of all the like Mazda RX-7 engines. And dude, everybody was smoking me. I was so pissed.
Right.
And I got to meet other friends that had other Mazdas. And then one day, one of my friends that lived like close to Huntington Park, he said, hey, man, you want to buy this motor? Some friends of mine just got one. It was what they call a 13B6 port out of an 85 GS LSC, which at the time was the biggest and highest horsepower rotor you could buy.
Still NA, though, right?
Still NA you could buy.
Yeah.
So by that time, I had already been saving up money to buy a Weber side draft. And that's how I had met John at AEM.
John Concialdi.
So I had went in there with my money that I was saving up, and I had a Weber side draft on deck.
Because he had all the Weber parts.
Yeah,
and
he had all the parts. So he had already tricked out. He told me it was ready to go. So I got the motor. Dude, I worked all night to get the motor in the car, wired up, put the side draft on it. It was like super loud because I just had an open header. The next day I drove it like that open header to the muffler shop, got dual exhaust. Dude, and lo and behold, when I got in it and I stepped on it, it hauled ass. I was like, wow, this is the fastest thing that I ever driven, even faster than the other cars I was driving.
Right.
So that week, I'm not going to lie to you, I went to every high school around there, everybody that beat me, and just looked for victims and beat every single guy. And then later, one of my friends had went to the Long Beach swap meet, and he said he had met a gentleman there that sold nitrous, that he had heard nitrous worked good on the rotaries.
Right.
So I was like, are you going to do it? He's like, I don't know. I said, give me his number. So he said he thought about it. He didn't want to give it to me. So he gave me the number, and I called the man. I said, you know what? I have my friend met you at the swap meet. We have rotary engines. I want to get nitrous plumbed under. He goes, well, how big is the motor? I said, oh, it's only a 1.3 liter. He goes, okay, I got something that'll work. He goes, I said, but I don't know anything about it. Can you install it for me, everything?
Right.
He goes, sure, come on the weekend to my house, and I'll install it for you. So I drive to Whittier.
Right.
Nice area in Whittier.
Yeah.
Off the 605. I'm like, wow, this is a really nice area. So I pull up to his house. It was a beautiful house, way better than any area I had ever been to, right?
Right.
So I call him, and I go knock on his door, and I tell him I'm here. Because at that time there was no cell phones. I had to call him on the house phone.
Yeah.
And then I pull up to his house, go knock on the door. I'm here. He's like, okay, just take off your intake manifold. Here goes some tools. Take off your intake manifold. I got a shop down the street. Let me go down there and plumb it for you, and I'll be right back. He goes, in the meanwhile, start mounting the bottle, because he sold me the bottle there and everything.
Wow.
Here's a drill. Mount the bottle, drill it down, run the line to the front, and then I'll do the rest when I come back. So he came back, put it on my car, this and that. I said, what do I do? He goes, nothing. He goes, how do you advance or retard your timing? I said, over here. He goes, okay, I'm going to retard it a little bit. He went retarded, and the motor sounded funny. And it didn't sound too happy. And he goes, go up and down the street and test it. I said, what do you do? He goes, just floor it and then push this button whenever you want it to activate. He goes, everything is open. I'm like, all right. Oh, my God. I hit that nitrous. It felt like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So
something changes.
Yeah.
Something changes when you hit nitrous for the first time.
So after that, dude, I would go to the street races and pick my races here and there, and no one had ever beat me.
Right.
So we had heard about this RX-3 that was pretty fast.
Right.
It was from the guys, I think, in El Sereno or somewhere over there. We didn't really know. Some Asian guy owned it, right?
Yeah.
So we're at the street races one day, and all the black guys, all the Mexican guys knew my car was very fast. They didn't know what I had because I never popped the hood, but they knew it was fast. So Greg had put 150 shot on it. At the time, it was a lot. You know, it hauled ass.
What?
And I had McGrary. I would run McGrary dirt race tires.
Did you start with 150 shot, or
yes.
you just?
No, I started with 105.
Like, here's
wait till
100.
I tell you the story. You're gonna really trip out on this. That is why it worked so good, because he knew what he was doing. So we show up to the races. We're at Del Taco, and they're there, and the guys with the RX-3 show up, and we had already seen them. This guy was cocky. We're like, we want to race. They're like, okay. So I think it was like a $600 or $700 pop back then. It was a lot of money.
That's a lot.
And I was like, dude, but you got to give me something. I'm on street tires. Look, they got thread, this and that. Your turbo. We'll pop the hood. I said, well, I'm not gonna pop my hood. You either want to race me or not, but I need the jump. So he ended up giving me the jump. And I took off, and I was gone. I was beating him so bad that I said, you know what? If I beat this guy this bad, no one's ever going to race me again. So I got out of it.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I had never raced a turbo car. Oh, man, I looked in my rearview mirrors. He was coming fast. So I hit the nitrous again, and my bottle was low. It sputtered. It like, it didn't grab. Oh, and I kept on. And then finally, it must have found something, and it hauled ass. And literally, dude, I seen that he beat me by like maybe a bumper. So we got back, and the guys wanted to fight and this and that. I'm like, no, dude, he beat me fair and square. He did beat me. He caught me up. Well, later I found out, guess what it was? It was Edwin Manguni who I had raced.
What?
Yeah, it was Edwin Manguni. And the gentleman that had installed the nitrous on my car was Greg Railsback, the owner of BDS. He would do that on the side.
Wow.
So later I became friends with Greg. I seen him at different places and that, and then we laughed about it. But yeah.
That's wild that was Edwin.
That was Edwin.
Yeah.
Whenever you see him, ask him. He'll tell you the whole story.
What's Edwin doing now? What's he up to?
He works for Hawk Pads. Hawk Brakes.
Hot Brakes? Hot Pads?
Hawk Pads, He
Yeah,
works with Hawk.
He's got good
So
stories.
it's crazy. So then, I had the RX-2. We moved from LA, came to Fontana. I kind of had to work for my uncle and stuff like that. I started, doing my pigeon stuff and the rooster stuff, and the car scene kind of died out. I had a
pigeon and rooster.
Yeah, pigeon and rooster. That was my job for a while. I was raising roosters.
Really?
My uncle would cockfight, and we'd go all over the country, and I was the breeder. And then I've always had my pigeons, my rollers. I've had them since I was like 8 years old, 9
Still
years
have
old.
them?
Yeah, still have them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like homing pigeons, or
no?
just...
They're rollers, tumblers.
What does that mean?
They roll. You're gonna have to come out to the house and shoot them. See them one day. Check them out. There's a worldwide competition and there's local competition. Yeah, we compete with them.
That's awesome.
And I breed them. I use genetics and the way I do it, and I got my own family that I've been working with for a long time.
That's cool.
So I'll get rid of the woman, get rid of the wife, get rid of everything before I get rid of my birds. So my birds have been with me since a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that's a nice balance too.
Well, that's my peace of mind.
Yeah.
I do that every day.
Music.
That's what I do every day in the morning.
Pigeons, yeah.
That's what I do every day.
Yeah.
That's what I do every day. So that I didn't do the car scene. The RX-2 sat there. Things sat at my house. It didn't do any much. My uncle, things started to go good. I started getting money, getting paid, and I decided I was going to work on the RX-2. So I sent it to go get painted. I put the nice interior in it. I had a motor built, and I started to go to Terminal Island.
Yeah.
So that's when I met
Raceway. Big Willie.
Yeah, met one of
Rest in peace, Big Willie.
One of my good friends now. He used to help me on the team. You probably remember him, tall black guy, Will.
Yeah.
He was on the team. So he sold me the very first motor that Jeff had sent him. It was a 6-port supercharged Camden with the Holly. That's what we put in my RX-2, put a 9-inch with the T5, and we'd go out to Terminal Island. And I actually got it to run 10s out there.
Wait, was it a 6-port supercharged?
6-port supercharged.
What?
On gasoline. We put race gas in it with the Holly.
Yeah.
And it ran real good.
Ran 10s at Terminal Island?
Yeah, 10s, high 10s.
Yeah.
And then I heard about someone selling an R100 that was back half that was almost done. I'm like, really? Let's go look at it. Well, so we went, and then Race Cars in Glendale, Echo Park was building it for some guy and named Jose. So I went and looked at it. I told my uncle, hey, I saw this car. I really want to get it. Will you give me the money or lend it to me? So my uncle lent me money. I paid $4,500 for the R100. So the R100,
which is a lot in that time. Right?
Was supposed to be. This was 92, 93. Right. So he gave me the money, and the R100 was supposed to be the killer street race car.
Yeah.
I was going to put my supercharged motor, and at that time I already had Greg Railsback working on a 471 to put on a 2-rotor. He was making the intake manifold, all the things, and we were going to go fuel injection. And I took it to Paul Alabab, who'd started finishing the chassis work. He had already made the header for the supercharge. When I started looking through a magazine, Turbo magazine, actually it was Sport Compact Car magazine. Right. And I seen that there was a guy in Wisconsin or Michigan who had a black FD who was running 10s in a street car with air conditioner. I said, 10s?
Yeah.
I said, this can't be true. And then the magazine had an article where they were having, I think it was a Good Guys race or some kind of race at Pomona where Adam was going to be there. There was imports.
Yeah, right.
So I said, I'm going to go up there. So I go up there. I don't know anybody in the scene.
Right.
I'm to myself. I'm cocky. I'm looking. I'm going to have this killer street car that I'm going to kill everybody with. That's a drag car. And I see Adam whipping these 10-second runs in a full street car with AC. I'm like, what's he got in there? They said, oh, it's turbo fuel injection. And I'm like, shit. If this guy's going this fast in that car, oh, man, I'm going to kill it in my R100.
Yeah.
So right away, I get on the phone Monday, or I think I even went down to Gardena, and I told John, hey, I seen this car at Pomona. Yeah. He's got this turbo on there. We need to get a turbo, and we need to get whatever's the best fuel injection. He goes, oh, Motec. I said, well, start ordering it.
Oh, wow.
So he started ordering the part. I told the turbo, I found out who had built his turbos
Right.
because he had a little sticker. I went to the guy and I said, hey, I want the same turbo that this guy has or better. He's like, it's going to be so much. I said, I don't care. And I need it now.
Right.
So I took him like 2-3 weeks to get it to me. I took the turbo, took it to Paul Alabab. And then someone told me, or maybe in the magazines, I seen about Spearco.
Yeah.
So I called the owner of Spearco Intercoolers, I forget what his name is, but the original owner, I called him, and I told him what I was doing. He goes, well, we do this for Bonneville. I was actually the first one to run a liquid-to-air intercooler in a drag car.
Oh,
Nobody had
wow.
ever done it, turbo.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know if this will work,
Right.
but you can try it. He goes, we've done it in Bonneville and stuff like that. I said, oh, well, I'm going to make it work.
Right.
So I got all this stuff. I took him to Paul Alabab. I told him, here, mount it. He made the header, made the exhaust, put the turbo. And by that time, John had already ordered the Motec and everything. Once all the fabbing got done, I sent the car to AEM.
Yeah.
And that's when he wired it up.
Yep.
It got it running. And at the time, that's when they were going to have that race in Bakersfield where the Puerto Ricans were going to come.
The import domestic one? Was it
No,
import?
it was imports. It was like a Puerto Rican race, like an ADCO race, but here.
Right.
So the promoter thought he could come out here, tap into the West Coast,
Right.
and make it really successful. And he brought all these fast-ass Puerto Rican cars. They were running like, I think, high 8s and 9s and 10s, right? That was fast. So I had never driven a faster car than my RX-2. This was a full chassis car now.
Yep.
Small wheelbase with the G-force. I didn't even know how to use the G-force. So the night before, we had got it running, dynoed it. I forgot how much power it was making, like barely 500 or something. And then I didn't even know how to do a burnout. So I practiced doing burnouts in the AM parking lot the night before, right? So we get to Bakersfield, and I see some Puerto Ricans there that had the same transmission. I'm like, hey, I bought this transmission from the promoter, which is Sammy Day. You know, I got the car going, oh, yeah, your car's beautiful because it had that awesome candy apple paint job. I said, I don't know how to use this shifter. Can you guys show me or teach me real quick? And they're like, yeah, this is what you do. Hit the brake, hit the line lock, and this is how you shift. You just pull back and forth, and this is how you do your burnout. Fine. So we went up there, got the first burnout out of the way, did a little launch, and I think the car ran like the first pass in 1180. So I'm like, okay, I got to learn how to drive it. It was, it wasn't scary, but I was like, okay, I was getting used to the
You
boost.
weren't used to boost,
Yeah, and then the two-step, too. We were the first ones using a two-step also.
Because you came out of the box with a Motec.
Let me tell you, Motec out of the box.
And this is like early 90s, right? 92?
This is 96.
Okay, 96.
1996.
Okay. So, I mean, in 96, people were still like, the best people were doing was like electromotive or this and that. So no one had Motec back then.
Nope. And then nobody had used the two-step. And George, the guy at Motec, said, oh, I got this thing that'll really light it up and get it on boost. You want to try it? I'm like, it's the two-step. I said, oh, yeah. So we did that. And I was like, it scared the shit out of me and everybody because it would pop so loud. But, that took getting used to like standing on it and hearing that and then popping the clutch. So first pass was like an 1180, 1170. Came back, did another one. Only did 2 runs, and I think I ran a 1090 or 1080, right? The second run.
Right.
So they all congratulated me. Oh, your car looks good. It looks like it's going to have potential. You got a lot of technology, blah, blah, blah. Everybody congratulating. So we were like, but the car had a problem. When I was going down track, it wouldn't go past like 68 or 6900. I told John it won't go. He goes, man, I don't know what it is. I took the rev limiters.
Did he go to the race with you?
Yeah, the rev limiter's gone. He goes, I don't know what it is. He goes, but what we'll do Monday, we'll call George, have him come to the shop, to the dyno, and we'll get it figured out. So I'm like, okay. So we leave Bakersfield.
Yeah, because that's like a $9,000 motor, right? Something like
95,
that. 9,500 motor.
$10,000, yeah.
Yeah.
So we go and we stop at In-N-Out in Bakersfield to eat. We're all tired. We stop there, and we're eating. And this guy comes and approaches me, and he comes, "Hey, how are you doing? I think your car is beautiful. It looks like it has a lot of potential. We'd like to do a story on it." It was Michael Ferreira.
Wow.
He goes, I work for Turbo Magazine. We'd like to shoot it. I said, when do you think we can do it? I said, well, as a matter of fact, the car has an issue. We're going to resolve it like Monday, and I already have the track. Because back then I was moving light speed, like I told you. I was focused, light speed, money, this, I didn't care.
Didn't matter, right?
We already had Palmdale booked for Wednesday,
right?
Track rental. So I told Mike, I said, this is perfect. We're going to rent Palmdale. You heard of Palmdale? He goes, oh, yeah, we're going to rent Palmdale, and I'm going to go do some more testing. He's like, okay, I'll make sure I'll have someone there. So we come to AEM. George shows up. He looks at the program. He goes, oh, I know what it is. So the two-step at the time had a dual two-step function where it would hit one limiter, the two-step limiter, but it wouldn't get it had a number, a rise rate number, where if that number wasn't that big, it wouldn't let you go from the two-step to the rev limiter. It's like a real slur. So it was getting stuck on the two-step.
It would keep you in that two.
In that two-step phase and wouldn't let it go to the rev limiter. So he just increased that number, put on the dyno. Oh my God, I'm like, we're money. We're good to go for Wednesday. So we're all pumped up. I got everything ready. We show up to Palmdale, we're setting up, and here shows up this little long-haired white boy in his Mitsubishi station wagon, black and gray, with a real pretty like white girl on the side of him, a girl. He's like, "What's up, dude?" I said, "Who are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm the photographer for Turbo Man." I'm like, "Cool." It was Sean Carlson.
Sean Carlson?
It was Sean Carlson.
Oh, and Jen, his
not Jen, the first one, the other one.
Okay.
I forget. I'll remember her name.
Yeah.
He showed up with her, so he was like shooting the car. He was all excited. And at the time, you gotta remember, Sean didn't know nothing about drag racing or anything. He was all into the show scene, and he was like mesmerized. He was like, wow. He was just taking pictures of this and that and here and there. So we go up and we do the first pass, and dude, it's like, oh shit. I ran like a 9:20 or 9:30.
Wow, at Palmdale.
At Palmdale, the first pass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I wasn't even shifting it high. We can go more boost, this and that. So we're all excited. The chassis guys there with me, we're tweaking it. Everything's going straight. I come back around. We check everything, we do it. And boom, I run an 890, the second one.
Wow.
Then I come back around later. And at the time I came back and I ran an 860. With that 860 and Sean being there, I think that was the fastest import pass in the world.
In the world, yeah.
And the fastest Mazda pass in the world at the time. So after that day, it blew up like, dude, it went like fire everywhere. Like it just, my phone that week, the next week just started blowing off the phone off the hook. And then with Sean being there, because at that time, then I already had cell phones. And my phone just started blowing up. Sean was excited. He came and shot some more.
You had a cell phone in 96?
Yeah.
Was your cell phone in 96?
No, at that time, I believe the cell phone in 96 that I had was a Microtac. I was past the bricks. So man. My very first phone was a brick, though. I had the big brick, and then I had the slim brick, and I think the third one I got was the little Microtac. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The little flip.
With a Motorola flip. Was it a Motorola
flip?
Flip,
yeah, the flip. So I either had the flip or the Microtac. So, man, my phone started blowing up, and then people after people we want to get involved with. We want to help you through AEM, through Sean, through Turbo Max. And, dude, that's the story. From there, it blew up, and it was just, what can I say? I was blessed. I got lucky.
That's some timing.
Luck, and not only that the people that I worked with at the beginning, I was fortunate enough that people headed me in the right direction, that I got involved with the right people like John Calcialdi, Gary at Hanson Race Cars. He looked out for me when he first looked at the car. He said, son, he goes, I can do whatever you want me to, but your car's set up very, very dangerous. I don't recommend you do anything. I said, well, can you fix it? Yeah, I can fix it. I said, please fix it. Let me know when it's ready.
What do you have to fix?
I didn't care what he had to do. So he had to cut off all the front where the struts were mounted. He put lamb struts. He set the caster, the camber, the tow height. He put a new rack and pinion in it, and he redid my 4-link bars and brackets in the back, and put new shocks, and then the wheelie bars, and set up the wheelie bars.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but he got it done for me. And like I said, he went to the track, and we became very good friends with him too. And I was lucky. I was lucky, along with my addiction.
Yeah, right.
That I was able to reach all those heights that I did.
That's good timing too, with Sean out there shooting an article and just like breaking those records.
And I got some good stories with Sean. I mean, Sean was so into it. He was like, I think like as passionate as I was and addicted to racing, I think Sean at one time was like addicted to my R100.
Oh, really?
Because he would like go over it, and he was always willing to work with it. So when I put nitrous on the R100, I did it, for the sponsors and to help it. And if ever I thought I needed it, I could use it. He's the one who installed the bottle for me. And, he had me go up to his house, to his mom and his dad's house. He did it in his garage.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, are you sure it's going to be okay with your neighbors? And he got done like at 2 a.m. He had me do a burnout. He wanted me to do a burnout in the middle of the night up in San Antonio Heights in the R100. And I was like, okay. And I thought his neighbors were going to come out and get mad. Oh, dude, they came out. They were high-fiving, fist pumping and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So the neighbors really love Sean.
Yeah.
And
Sean
from there,
dude.
they took off. Not too long after that, he started helping. I think the first car he helped along with was Jason Winfield's green CRX.
Yep.
And then Steph came along. And, like a lot of people don't know this, Sean, Jeff, and Mark and what's his name, and Rob.
Right.
They're the ones who built Steph's car.
Yeah. Yeah,
They did it.
They built the black one,
And they built the orange one.
but it was the black. They built the hatchback, right? So they built the whole car, and then
They built the front wheel drive one there too.
But that's the front wheel drive. They took Steph's old car, his black. We used to street race with it, right? His black EF or ED. It's like an ED9, and they built it. And then in the process of building it, they're like, well, we can put whatever skin we want on this thing. So then they reskinned it as the EG.
They did all of that in
ED,
Sean's
EK.
garage.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, people don't even know the story. I was Jeff, Mark, and Rob, and Sean.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, so it's crazy. And we became really, really good friends with Sean after that.
Yeah.
Real
Rest
good
in
friend.
peace, Sean Carlson, man. That's super, like, I just sat down with Gary Kubo, right? We talked about it. And Gary put this title out, and I love the way he says it. He talks about people in the industry, and there's certain people who are visionaries. And he uses the term visionary. And I love that term, right? Like, you're a visionary. You know, you do things before they were being done, right? And when people are doing things like Sean's a visionary. He was doing things before they were being done because he saw it in his head. Like, you saw it in your head. And there's something in your heart that made you, like, you had to do it. You you had to accomplish this, and you had to push toward this impossible dream. And it's like, you know, you listen to this story and you could feel the passion in the story. And that's our generation and what it took to accomplish that. And I don't see that too much anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to get too involved, you know, but I've been wanting to say this for a long time, and I think it needs to be said. I don't know if a lot of people know or not, and it's in regards to Sean. I think as a society, as friends, as an industry, we failed Sean. Because a lot of people don't know, you know, Sean had a problem, and I didn't know about it. I wish I would have, because I would have got on his ass and rode him.
Right.
And I think whenever we see people in trouble or people doing things as friends, as an industry, we need to step up, no matter if we're going to be hated or talked about. And we need to help the people that need help. And he'd probably still be here, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where I think, you know, a lot of us, you know, like we talked about it earlier, we're more than just an industry. A lot of us are like family. We see each other. We get very happy. And in that sense, I think a lot of us failed Sean, you know?
Yeah. I think you're right.
Somebody should have said something. And a lot of people, I know that quite a few people knew, and they kind of kept it hush-hush. You know, they were probably didn't want to get involved, or they were embarrassed, or thought maybe what was going to happen if his sponsors found out or whatever.
Yeah.
But because of that, look what happened.
Yeah.
And I think if we would have embarrassed him, or we would have said something, or more of us would have confronted him,
Yeah.
you know, we could have did something about it, and he'd still be there. Not to say that, you know, you never know what can happen, but we could have probably made a difference.
I think that's a tough perspective, because I've had some friends who have gone down that road, and I've been there for them in the best that I can, but in when it comes down to it, there's really nothing I could do at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I've stepped in and I've tried to do things, but I mean, it's hard with people who are that strong-willed, and it's like,
I think Sean was a little bit different. He did care what other people said, and he was very prideful. I think if he would have got embarrassed or shamed or something, you know, put on the spot, I think it might have gave him a reality check, to be honest with you.
I just wish he was still here. And I love, you know, that's another thing. That's the reason for the show, is that there are people who they will never get to tell their story. So, you know, the fact that we get to sit here and tell his story as in glimpses and pieces. And Lisa told a little bit about his story, how he helped her with the lamb suspension, and how they always were kind of working together in different aspects. And, you know, you have a story with, you know, having your bottle
That's
installed.
how he got so involved with lamb, because of me.
Yeah, really?
He saw the lamb struts on the car, and I got to find out. Yeah, all of that came down because of me, and then he built a real good relationship with them.
Yeah.
All the components, because at the time, you know, I bought nothing but the best for the car, and that was Gary, not me. I let Gary do his thing. When he told me the car was unsafe, I wasn't going to question him. I knew he was a race car man. You do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Make this car safe, and what you think was the best. But yeah, that's how we met them.
That's cool to hear that some of the things you were doing were inspiring Sean, because we all inspire each other. You know, there's a lot of things that are, you know, and that was the way it was back then, is that there was really nothing to, You know, there was no real, like, magazines were the only thing.
Yeah.
It
That
was
R100,
limited.
believe it or not, that's been that was a big eye opener and inspiration for a lot of people. That's what did it for Sean. That's what that spark that he needed. That's what took him to the next level.
Right.
That car, boy, he was like, every time he'd see it, you should see how he would go through it and this, and he wanted to know how everything worked and what it was, and
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I met Sean when I worked at DC Sports for Daryl and Derek Contreras. I was doing the R&D, and he came in, and they were working on a project together.
So you know Jeff too, then?
Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know all those
And
guys.
I got some good stories with Sean. The funniest story is gonna be I'll tell you if I'll make it quick. So the big rig I bought that I own, I got from Sean.
Oh, really?
He couldn't have it anymore or whatever. He needed to get rid of it. I said, I'll take over. So yeah, the story is one of the best ones that I always remember. So we're gonna go to the race in West Palm Beach.
Okay.
I think it was the NIRA race.
Okay.
So we're in he has the rig. That's right before I bought it from him. And we load, I'm going with him. So it's only me and him driving.
Right.
So we're like, how are we going to do this, Sean? I never driven a rig. He goes, oh, you can drive it. Anybody can drive it. So what we figured out was he would drive 2 tanks. So it came out to 8 hours.
Okay.
So we drive 8 hours, fill up, then we'd switch.
Right.
So we make it to West Palm Beach, no problem. On the way up there, we make it there, no problem. Then it's time to leave, and we got to head up north, up towards Englishtown, because the next race is going to be at Englishtown. So we're going to drive up there, stay for a week, or maybe leave the rig and go back home and leave the cars in the rig. So I'm like, okay, I'll drive the first leg. He's like, okay. So I left out of West Palm Beach, drove till we got to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So then I go to the back and I fall asleep on the sleeper. And Sean's driving, and all of a sudden I just hear him, you mother, this and that, just going off. He ended up moving maybe 30 miles in 8 hours because of the traffic. He's like, I can't believe it, and you're falling asleep back there, and I haven't even slept or nothing. Oh, he was so pissed because he didn't gain nowhere. Then I took over, and then I started driving. But it was so funny because on the way up there, it's like, I was asleep, and every time I hear the song, I always think about Sean. All of a sudden, I hear Rod Stewart, and he's jamming. He's turning the stereo out to If You Think I'm Sexy. So every time I hear that song, I always think of Sean. He loved that song, man. He must have played that song, like, I don't know, our trip, like maybe 100 times, just over and over and over. I'm like, can you please play something else? He's like, no, I just love this song, dude. I love this song.
The Rod Stewart, If You Want My Body and You Think I'm Sexy.
Yep, that was Sean's song.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was so funny when he was going off so bad when that DC traffic got him because he didn't gain anywhere.
Right.
And I was like, nope, because the gas tanks are still full. I'm like, nah, dude, I got plenty of rest already here. I'll take over.
Right.
And I just drove the rest of the way till we got up to, I think, Pennsylvania or somewhere.
Right. Jeez, that DC traffic's no joke.
No, I've never driven through it.
Yeah?
So I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I slept through most of it.
Oh, when you got to it when it was at the end of it.
At the end of it, yeah.
Oh man, that's so funny. I got a funny Sean story. We're flying into PRI, right? And it's in Indiana, and it's in the winter, right? And it's freezing, right? And so we get in and we land, and we're I'm with my buddy Dane at the time. We're working on some race stuff, and we see him at the airport, and they're just. If they're outside waiting for like a cab or shuttle or something, and they're in shorts, right? And Sean and Rob.
Yeah, Sean and Rob had to be Sean and Rob.
Were in shorts and tank tops.
Oh my god!
Right, and this is winter in was it Indiana, right?
Yeah, it's
Indianapolis.
super freezing there.
And there's snow. It's snowing, right? And I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" I said hello, and I was like, "Yeah, aren't you guys cold?" Hey, then they're drunk, right? They're just wasted from the flight, right? And they just like look at each other, and they're just like, yeah, I guess it's cold, huh? And they just reach down and they pull out like an AEM beanie, and they put AEM beanies on, and they're just like, all right, cool. Shorts, tank tops, just the beanie's gonna keep them warm.
Oh my god!
Oh, I was cracking up. It was so funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's Rest in peace, Sean Carlson, man. Yeah. I'm glad we got these stories to kind of carry on that legacy. So we were, you were talking about, you had a Capri, and it's funny because you had a Capri, you shopped at Super Shops, and, you know, you ended up racing with one of the guy that owned, Greg, the guy that owned BDS, right?
He put the nitrous system on the RX2 on the Mazda.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting down, one of my earlier episodes is KG Kurt. And I don't know if you ever ran into Kurt Gordon at any of the Super Shop stuff, because he worked at Super Shops, and his first car was a Mercury Capri.
It was.
It was, yeah. And then there was somebody else whose first car was...
Was it my year, or was it the NIRA? Because in 79 and later, they were the same thing as a Mustang.
Right.
So mine's is the German Mercury Capri, the import.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember.
The
I'll show you a picture.
the
smaller hatchback.
Right,
Yeah. They
I
had
think-
the Mark 1, Mark 2.
I think his was the Mustang ones came with the 4-cylinder, right? Was it
No, these did come with 4-cylinder too. But
Okay.
the newer ones, so the top of the line one was the same thing as the 5.0 Mustang.
Right.
They had 5.0s in them. So basically it was a Mercury Capri, but they were made here now. It
Right.
was the same Fox body.
They skinned them different, a little bit
Yeah,
different.
a little bit
right?
different tail lights,
Yeah.
different front
So
end.
you had the earlier ones. You had the German.
Yeah, the German one. Yeah,
Yeah, that's wild.
The German ones.
Yeah, but he had one, and then somebody else had a Mercury Capri, and I think it was, man, I almost want to say it's Miles, but I don't think it was Miles because he had the CRX. It was somebody else. Somebody else had it. Like I was like, well, everyone's got Mercury Capris, so. But it's funny, and then now, Kurt was at Super Shops, but now Kurt works at BDS because BDS got picked up by BDL, and so now Kurt's at BDS. It's this weird little circle thing, you know. So, and then Harv too. Harv called in on our show, and we put a little picture of Harv up.
Yeah, I just talked to Harvey today.
Yeah, I want to go sit down and talk to him. He said he said whenever, come on down. But
yeah, that's how I knew Harv before the import racing because of Greg.
right,
I started going over there. Like I said, I was getting the manifold done and the supercharger on there. Yeah.
yeah, that's wild.
Mhm.
So then, all right. So we left off. You ran the numbers at Palmdale, right? You were the fastest Mazda in the world.
Import, I think, too, at the time.
Fastest import in the world.
Both,
and
yeah,
fastest
for a
Mazda.
minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So now you have that. You painted that target on your back, right? So now it was on. The game is on, and that's how it was back then. Like as soon as you did something and people found out about it, they were gunning, right? And so now this is 96, right?
96. Then we took the R100, went to ICO, did a bunch of stuff, ran against the Puerto Ricans, went really, really fast. We were back and forth at it with them, even though they had the advantage. They had lighter cars, they had nitrous,
Right.
they had more dynamic cars, and I was still right there. They'd go a little bit faster. I went faster. So I ended up going at the fastest 803 at ADCO 1 year.
Okay.
And then after that, I said, you know what? This car's getting too small. I need to build another car.
Right.
That's when I started to build the FD. We struggled for about 4, 5, 6 months with the FD when it first came out.
Right.
But then as soon as I got the hang of it, man, it was over with. That sucker was real fast. So I started going into the 7s, then the deep 7s, then the low 7s. And like I said, I just played around with it. I never really got the full potential of it.
Right.
Because, I was always not trying to go too much faster so they wouldn't change the rules on me because I've seen how they were doing everybody else. So in that car, the fastest I got to go with the 2-rotor was 738 at 183. Then I decided I wanted to go faster, and we put a 3-rotor.
Right.
That's when I went 6s. And then, with the tire technology at the time and this and that, and probably not really wanting to redo the chassis, the car started getting a little squirrely for my taste.
Okay.
And dangerous when I tried turning up the power of the 3-rotor, and that's when I figured, okay, we're going to build a killer car from what I've learned. I got all these other people helping me from when they know from Pro Stock Cars, Pro Mod, and by that time I had already met Jerry Haas, Jerry Bickle.
Wow.
Chris was helping me from Ace Manufacturing at the time is Chris Bell. He's now at Kinetic Shocks. He's one of the most talented chassis guys out there.
Yeah.
He's really good at what he does. He makes shocks, and he's actually one of the guys who set up the fastest Street Outlaw cars. When they were running Street Outlaws.
Yep.
He's one of the guys behind the scenes that's made those cars work in the beginning and made them go down the street and everything. Wow. So stuff we learned from him and stuff he told me to do. So we built my RX-8 right here at the shop, and we were gonna have the killer car. Put the 3-rotor. We were gonna be able to turn it up, and yeah, man, things went real good. Like second time out at Englishtown against Titan, I went 670s. That was the fastest time like ever. So at one point, I had the record with the fastest 2-rotor, which didn't get taken down for a long time. And the record, I was holding both records for the fastest 2-rotor and 3-rotor.
And that's in the RX-8?
That was
RX-8 was 3-rotor.
3-rotor,
yeah.
RX-7,
when it was 2-rotor.
Yeah, but even though I stopped racing a 2-rotor, it took a long time before they passed my time up.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think the record at the track got established as a 744.
Okay.
744.
Yeah.
744, and then the RX-8, like I said, we got to go 670s at Englishtown that day against Titan, and that was faster than what the 2JZs were going back then.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
670s, wow.
Yeah, so it got to go real fast, and that just, boy, that was great. I was also the only Mazda driver to get the Summit 200-mile-an-hour jacket. Entered the 200-mile-an-hour club. No other Mazda did it.
Yeah, you were first with them with the Mazda.
Yeah, first and only one. So we entered the club at 205. Okay. So 204, almost 205.
Right. Wow.
So I had my good little moments towards the end there. I'm not gonna lie. It got to be a lot of work. I was tired.
Right, because you're on the road all the time.
A lot of tired. The money I was getting, even though I was sponsored, it just wasn't enough to do the R&D and start keeping up with like the Matt Hartfords, the ARA, the Scranton brothers. They had good backing, and they were done a lot of R&D,
GM backing,
casting. I had factory backing, but it wasn't to that extent.
Right. Well, Mazda's pretty small in comparison to like Toyota and GM.
Yeah, and they weren't really like backing me up in drag racing technology, where those guys were out there trying to make, helping them with engines and stuff like that. But Ara was backing his own self. But it's hard, when you got me, which I'm the only one that would drive, build the motors, do the tuning, doing the clutch, basically calling all the shots. I was doing all of that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Everyone else was just the driver, and they had a whole team.
Right. You're also running the team. You're also like working with the sponsors.
Yeah, working with the sponsors. I was also the manager. I was also the truck driver at times. So it was a lot. It got overwhelming, and the money I was getting just wasn't enough. Thank God that I had good sponsors that helped me the whole time, which I always will owe my success to them.
Let's shout them out.
Yeah, it was Mazda.
Right.
First of all, Mazda, K&N, Toyo Tires. Extrude Hone here locally. Ed, rest in peace. Also, he did so much for me. He did so much for me. He did a lot for Lisa and Gary Kubo too.
Yeah, that's what Lisa. We talked to Lisa. She said she will always have an Extrude Hone sticker on her car.
Me too.
Yeah.
Moroso, G-Force transmissions, and not to forget, which they don't exist anymore, but RaceSearch.com. If it wouldn't have been for RaceSearch.com, I probably wouldn't have got to the next leg, because they were actually my first sponsor that paid me money. And through them and me being able to do the circuit, so it's funny. Let me tell you a story how I got to RaceSearch.com. So I was building the RX-7. It was already done. We had already got to run at a couple of races. And somehow or another...
What year is this? This is...
98-ish.
98-ish,
98-ish.
okay. Wow.
98-ish, right before 99.
Right.
Someone told me, hey, there's a radio station that's about motorsports. They want to get you on there and interview you. Okay. So it was Kenny Sargent, Statman, Crash Gladys, the Speed Freaks.
Speed Freaks, that's right.
Speed Freaks, right? So they got me on there. We did an interview. We became good friends. I did a couple of things with them where I would go to Speed Zone and we'd race the dragsters. Like one day I ran against Jerry Tolliver, the funny car driver. I beat him. Right. We did different things like that, right? And went out there. And one day Kenny Sargent calls me up. He goes, hey, man, I may have something for you. There's a new internet company out there that's looking to get some exposure. They want to sponsor cars, this and that. You want to go talk? I said, sure, anything. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we have our appointment. Kenny goes with me, and we get there, and Frank Pedregron and his agent are sitting down with the owner and the CEO, and they're talking about his sponsorship. So I sit down with Frank. We talk a little bit of what I'm doing. I already knew who he was, what he was doing. I was like so happy and honored to be there. He told me stories about how he'd go to Palmdale, and we talked. And then they got up and left, and we had our conversation. So they wanted to sponsor me. They wanted the whole car, but this was the thing that he proposed to him. He goes, I can't give you no money up front, and I can't flat out give you anything to race, but what I will do is this. If you win, and only if you win, I think it was $3,500. We're going to give you $3,500 for every time you win.
Wow.
I said, how about second place? He goes, I can't give you nothing for second.
Huh.
But if you win,
Right.
You get 3,500. I said, okay, deal. So he wrote it up. We signed the contract, and boy, did I kick their butt, because I won, like, I think every single race
Yeah.
that year.
Yeah.
So I was just cashing it after the third one. He goes, you won again? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, good for you. I hope you win again. And, you know, it was really good for them, because that's when, you know, ESPN started to take traction, all the magazines.
Yeah.
And, dude, I would have, like, that's one thing I've always been fan friendly.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if it wouldn't have been for them, I don't think I would have got the sponsors that I did get besides Research, like the K&Ns, the Toyo tires, because they would see such a huge crowd at my pit all the time that would have ESPN come by, that would have the magazines come by. And, you know, I was always there. No matter how busy I was always signing autographs. My pit was always open. I never cordoned it off. So I owe a lot to Research, because the Research opened the door for K&N to come and approach me. And obviously Mazda, me being a Mazda guy, they've been there since day one.
Right.
You know, they've been there since day one, helping me as much as they could, or as their budgets or as their marketing allowed for our field. So it was great, you know. It was really, really good, you know, and I'm blessed that I had those people help me.
Yeah. Who was your contact at Toyo? Was it Greg?
Greg
Vandermark.
Mm-hmm.
So Greg Vandermark is my first official, like, real sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in there for my CRX, and I was going to do road racing, and I went in there, and he was like, and everyone else would just be like, they're like, oh, you're not, yeah, I'm going to go road race this car. And they're like, you're not going to drag race it? And I was like, no, I just want to road race. And Greg was like, this thing's cool. You got a cool proposal. Let's do this. And he's just like, you're sponsored. I got you. And they've threw tires at me ever since.
Yeah, and it wasn't an easy battle. I suffered a lot. Like, so I had the Research. I did great. Everybody knew the FD. We had made some improvements, and Toyo's decided to step up.
Right.
They were going to be the title sponsor, because Research backed down. CarParts.com started kicking their butt. I don't know exactly what happened.
Right.
So they pulled out. Toyo Tires was the first sponsor, and I was committed to the series, which they had already had. But IDRC was having an event at Palmdale, season opener.
Right.
I said, hey, we can go up there. We can test, see if we can get the car better. Did some changes to the car. I think I upgraded the transmission, so I had to get a new drive shaft made. And I got a drive shaft made here locally, which I had called Mark Williams, because I always had top-of-the-line equipment, but Mark Williams couldn't get it to me fast enough.
Okay.
The material was on back order when that first aluminum matrix material came out. So get the car, go up there, do the burnout, everything is great, make my first pass, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, I see the wall, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I tried to turn the steering wheel, and then I remember going by, waving to the crowd. Everybody's up on the stands. They're cheering for me. And then, like, flash before my eyes, I got the impression on my chest, and I'm in the ambulance and in the gurney. So the first race of the season, that's when I crashed the FD.
Oh, no.
So what happened?
At that IDRC race.
Yeah, what happened is that dry shaft that I had made, they didn't x-ray the yokes. And when it broke in fourth gear, one of the yokes split. The dry shaft hit the dry shaft safety loop. But since we were going so fast, it sheared off a piece of the aluminum. The tire ran it over and sent me straight into the wall. But I managed to turn it, and I slapped the wall with my body, and I broke ribs, punctured a lung, and I got a helicopter ride to Cedar Sinai. So, man, I was so worried about the car and then my sponsorship.
You broke ribs and you punctured a lung.
And I gave me a helicopter ride. Because I wasn't doing too good. My head was hurting really, really bad. They were worried about my breathing, but my pain was in my neck and my head. Like, it was like, I can't even describe it. So I was so worried at the hospital.
You were half track or something.
Yeah,
right?
with the fourth gear. It was going real fast.
Yeah.
I hit the wall like 150. So I was so worried about my Toyo sponsorship. Greg came to the hospital. He said, look, don't worry. Everything's going to be through. If you need money up front so you can fix the car. I told my guys, take the car to Hanson, take it apart, do whatever. I need the car done ASAP, because the first race was the first year of NHRA, was going to be in Ennis, Texas. So, you know, I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks, got home. I really wasn't getting better. I finally, Hanson and them convinced me to go see a chiropractor. The chiropractor was like a miracle worker. He straightened me out, cracked me, and after going to the chiropractor, I started going to him 3 times a week. I was better and better every day. Dr. Steer hadn't cleared me, but Ennis was coming up, and I wasn't about to miss out on points or the sponsorship.
Right.
So I told Greg, hey, the car's not ready yet, but I'm going to I'm gonna drive the R100 NS. And dude, we almost pulled it off. I came in second. The ABS Ben Moss Ford Focus with RJ driving barely beat me. So I ended up getting runner-up. So everything turned out good, you know. After that,
you're still second place for first race. That starts you pretty good.
And that was, I think, why everybody that backed me and helped me and the sponsors came after, because they knew no matter what it took, I was going to do it.
Right.
You know, I was in pain. Like I said, the doctor hadn't even cleared me yet, but I didn't care.
Right.
They asked me, did the doctor say it was fine? Yeah, I lied. I ain't gonna lie, because what was I going to do? So, TV was there, and I just went and did the best that I could.
Wow.
And got a second place.
And you were still in pain, too.
Yeah, it took a long time before that pain went away. It took probably 5, 6, 7 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That neck pain or the
ribs?
The ribs. Oh, yeah, ribs.
And to this day, I'm not straight.
Really?
My ribs stick out.
Ribs are rough, especially breaking a rib.
Ribs are rough. No, what was the roughest was when they stuck that chest tube in you.
Oh, to reinflate.
And you knew I was going to be a problem, because I had seen so many 9/11 programs on TV, like motorcycle riders go down, and then the ambulance drivers doing it to get to inflate.
Oh, you had a collapsed lung and everything? Wow.
I was like, oh, do we really got to do this, doctor? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going to be in trouble. So it was nothing nice, but I made it through it. And, you know, like I said, I was very successful. You know, as years went by and we got with the RX-8, I had the record in the RX-8 and I ran really, really fast, but I wasn't as successful as with the RX-7. You know, the competition was really, really tough.
Right.
I didn't have the same funding as I did before. And
so you crashed the RX-8?
I crashed the RX-7.
RX-7.
Yeah. That was the same day that Daryl Earnhardt died. So that was in 2001.
Oh, wow.
Same day that Dale Earnhardt died, same day I crashed.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's the first year of the NHRA.
That was the first day of the NHRA.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Crazy.
Man. Well, you know, I'm glad you came through. There's some people that just, you know, that stuff happens to, and you know, like when
and I'm gonna tell you why I got hurt so bad. That's why all these people that are listening, I used to be very cocky, and I think Dale Earnhardt was cocky too. I would wear my seatbelts loose. So when I hit the wall, what stopped me was the cage.
Right.
And the seatbelts kind of held me in place. So my body stopped, but my neck and hips kept on going that way. And they kind of U'd me. You know what I mean?
Oh, because you weren't
I wasn't sunken in and strapped down.
Wow.
And I would always wear them loose so I could be comfortable.
Damn.
Thinking nothing would ever happen.
Because nothing had happened before then.
Nothing had happened before. And I was a very cautious driver. The R100 made me a very good driver at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would get out of it, not get crazy.
I love my belts. I love them just, I sink them down. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just feel like I just love to be like stuck to the car.
Yeah, that's what I do now. Now I like, you're right. If the car's built for you right and you get comfortable in it, that's the best, because you just move your feet and your arms only what you have to, and you're good to go.
And you can feel everything, every little movement, every little twist and shimmy. You can feel it. Yeah. So the R100's Flacco, right?
Yeah, or me. That's what they called me, Flacco. But that's what I put. That's the reason why I put it on there, because all the guys start calling me in L.A. and then the Puerto Ricans, they all would call me Flacco because I was real skinny.
That's why they called you Flacco?
Flacco, yeah.
I'd always wondered that. I was like, why are they? What?
So then when I seen that the R100 was skinny, I said, I'm going to put Flacco on the side of it.
Because it's skinny.
And not only that, because I had already seen in the magazines that the Puerto Ricans had their name on the car. So like Rafaelito, he had Rafaelito on the side of his car. Felo had Felo. So I said, oh, they call me Flacco. Instead of putting Abel, I'm going to vote Flacco.
Yeah, that's funny. That's awesome. I think a lot of people didn't know that. Yeah. They're just like, I thought the car was Flacco.
Yeah, no, me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So now we're all the way. We're getting into what, 2006 ish.
2006 is that's when the sponsorship stopped. I did it out of my pocket for like, I think one more year, a couple of races, and then I was like, that's it. I can't anymore. Right. Got to park them, and I got to get a job, start working.
Right. And that's when the series started dying out.
Well, the series I think died before I quit.
Okay.
Yeah, so it died first.
Right. So what do you contribute to the death of sport compact drag racing?
It's hard to say, but I'm going to think that probably the big manufacturers had something to do with it and influence in NHRA or something, because this is the only example I can give.
Okay.
And any person with common sense and logical is going to understand this. So we're at St. Louis.
Right.
The year before NHRA starts
Yep.
with NIRA.
Okay.
And it is a jam-packed house. I don't know how much there is there. 15, 20, 30,000. I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It would take me 45 minutes from the time slip to get to my pit. That's how many people were there. That was just getting through the crowd.
Yeah.
Right? So that was for NIRA.
Yeah.
Then the next year, we're like, oh, yeah, we're ready to see NHRAs. We're going back to St. Louis. This is going to be fantastic. There's not even 1,000 people there. So how do we go from NIRA to NHRA and there's no one there?
Right.
And that's the way it was. I mean, our crowds at all the NHRA races, nothing compared to NIRA, nothing compared to Nopi or IDRC. So I don't understand it. I don't know how, I can tell you this, that Ford and Chevy were getting their butts kicked because at the time, nobody was buying Mustangs. Nobody was buying Camaros. They were dying. They were dead in the water. Yep. There were talks of or reports that they were going to start making them, this and that. And what a coincidence that NHRA takes over, that they've been real good with those manufacturers all these years. And the sport compact stuff goes away, and here comes the Mazdas and the Mustangs and the Camaros start to get alive. So I don't understand.
Yeah.
Maybe that has something to do with it, but that's just one thing perspective that I can give. We were at that track the year before with the full crowd. The crowd's happy, cheering, yes, asking for autographs. It's fantastic. ESPN's there.
Right.
We go the next year with the king of drag racing, NHRA, who has the biggest backing, who's been there since day one, and there's not even 1,000 people there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But were you paying attention to the cars in like the hot rod class and those other classes that weren't at that event, that just didn't show up? Did you pay attention to the fact that...
I didn't, because I was so involved with my stuff, and to be honest with you, there wasn't really a lot of time. We'd get there, and we were like slaves.
Right. So what started happening is you have NHRA, you have NIRA. I think NIRA disappeared.
NIRA was gone already.
NHRA bought NIRA.
Yeah,
and
NHRA.
Shut it down.
And then shut it down.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
And then there was IDRC, and there was still Nopi.
Nopi, yes.
So there was three events, and NHRA was trying to cut the throat of the other two events because they're like, we're the big swinging deal, and we make the rules and we do this sort of thing. But they were running races the same time there was other races. I'm sure you saw the conflict in schedule, because you were only doing NHRA at that point.
I was doing Nopi too. I would do NHRA or Nopi whenever, as long as we could.
As long as it didn't conflict.
But I don't think the first year there was any conflicting races.
But IDRC was conflict.
IDRC probably did conflict.
Right.
Yes.
And so, and they were like, how many times were you at one race and then you had to drive clear across the country for the next race?
Oh, a lot.
A lot, right?
A lot.
Okay. And you were, you had the sponsorships and you could afford it, but think of the other teams who were on a lower level.
Imagine.
They couldn't. And then how many times did you drive there and drive all the way back for another race? How many times did you traverse the country because you had to?
Yeah.
Because you were committed to these series.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, you could do it, but the people who couldn't do it, they would just skip that race. Right. So you figure 2 or 3 of these cars skip a race. Now, that's like, maybe a third of the crowd might be wanting to see those cars because that was the hot rod class, and people loved the pro cars. They loved the speed. They loved
the pro cars, but the hot rod and all those cars, that was the cars they could relate to.
The hot rod,
that's the car I get in, my everyday car that I get in, and look what they're doing with it.
Yep, the Civics and the all of those cars were what drew a portion of the crowd, a pretty good sized portion of the crowd. So when those guys didn't show up, people were just started finding out like, oh, they're not going to be there, or they're and I think that started dwindling because they would get to a race, and because we didn't, what was it, 06, there started to be internet, right? So they would start hearing about what people were doing and whatnot, but I don't think people still knew. They'd show up to a race and their favorite wasn't there, and I think that started cutting it down. And plus we started seeing GM, and we started seeing like what Toyota came into it. These big money sponsors were like putting tons of money into making these cars crazy fast. What GM's budget was $2 million on their front wheel drive. I know their budget was $2 million on the front wheel drive stuff.
Imagine.
And so, yeah, right. Imagine
Crazy.
that. What was your budget?
I think back in the day, I was right around probably a little bit shy than 300.
Okay. Yeah. Imagine what you could have done with 2 million, right? It's crazy. So you start seeing these really high budget teams come in. Who can compete with that?
No, that's why it was so hard. That's what I told you. It became slavery for me. I was, these guys would go test during the week and be ready on race day, where race day was, my first couple of runs or whatever it was testing. I was testing on race day, and you can't do that.
No, they're renting the track the week before and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, you just can't.
Yeah. So then who's going to come into a series when you're competing against giants that have a $2 million budget? You start seeing the pool of new, like, fresh meat or new competitors start drying up, and then some people leave the series. What do you have?
Yeah.
Smaller and smaller fields, and then less money, less sponsorship money. When the crowds aren't there, the sponsors aren't paying. No. So, yeah. So that's part of my perspective on it's kind of what you said, is the big companies came in and made some things happen. And plus you start talking about, if these companies are putting the biggest money into the sport, they kind of get the pull of what rules happen. And I'm sure you've seen this, right? You've seen little rule changes that seem kind of unfair or seem kind of very like slated toward bigger money, right?
Yeah, like example, my brother's car, his FD.
Right.
So they had what they call the modified class. So they had said initially in the rules the year before that if your subframe was removable, you could build the tube frame subframe,
Right.
but your suspension had to bolt up to the stock location. You couldn't modify the firewall. You couldn't modify none of the sheet metal or that, right?
Yeah.
We show up to the race, and here now the GM cars and the Toyota cars, it's like they cut all of that out, built the full frame, then they welded pieces of the chassis. And when we're like, this wasn't the rule, well, this is the rule now. So we parked my brother's car. We never ran it because obviously they were going to be like at a 250, 300-pound advantage, plus all the suspension geometry and everything. So we said, just screw it. We never ran the car.
Wow. So there's a great example of like,
that eliminated us from that class.
right. Think of how many other people that affected, you know what I mean? Other teams who are just like, nah, we're good. Right. And it's a shame. And so you start seeing that with, I spent a lot of time in the Formula Drift world, and you start seeing things like political calls or weird things that are just like, man, you got to be a little more fair. And you see the way they orchestrate their, like, one race here, one race on the other side of the country, and I just look at it because I know what happened to sport compact drag racing, and I see when the writing starts showing up on the walls. Bigger teams come in, bigger money, this type of thing. It's kind of getting towards the same place. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I'm just like, wow, I don't really want to see these series go away. I never wanted to see sport compact drag racing go away, but luckily it's back, right?
Well, it's coming back.
It's coming back.
It's just difficult. It's a different story now.
What do you think about it now?
Oh, it's great. The racing is great. The problem is if you're not rich or a millionaire.
Or living on the East Coast.
Well, even then, parts are expensive.
Yeah.
It's not cheap to go racing.
Right.
Very expensive. I don't see how you can be in any of the top 3 classes, how you can be competitive without spending a ton of money.
Right.
To maintain, to initially and maintain.
But these, I mean, if you think about it, these people are spending it no matter what, right? They have that. That's what I'm
saying, but they
have that same mentality, right? Like, if you were thinking about it, like, we got to do this no matter what, you're going to figure out a way. And I think that's what they're doing. And it costs a lot more now.
Yeah, it's just, I've tried, and believe you me, I got the willpower, but I can't do it. It's not financially possible.
Right.
Impossible. It's impossible.
At that pro level, right?
Even any level.
Right.
Like the RX-8. Just in safety equipment. If I wanted to go to Irwindale Thursday, I need $10,000 to $12,000 in safety equipment only to get it to pass tech.
Oh, just because all your stuff's outdated.
Outdated.
Yeah.
And then to run it, every 6 runs, I need tires, clutches, spark plugs, oil.
Yeah.
It's expensive fuel. It adds up.
Yeah.
That's if nothing breaks.
Right.
And if stuff starts to break, it could be a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 weekend.
Right. Yep.
So it's crazy.
But you're thinking about it.
I really want to do it, and it's going to come. I don't know when. I may have to do a little bit of sacrifices here and there. I'm working on some people maybe helping me, but I don't, nothing is in stone. But I will say this, it's going to happen in the next 3-4 years.
Right.
I got to do something before then.
I love that it's you're like, man, it's all expensive, but it's on your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's been on my brain a long time, but it's just like I said, it's either, and I could have probably did it, Greg, with a lot of sacrifice, but I started thinking about it. To make who the money, to do what? I'd rather spend that money like on my RX-2, my Grand National, my Capri,
Right.
get my street cars going.
Yeah.
Get them going, because the racing, I'm going to spend money for what?
Right. That's
true.
true.
For what? So, I probably could have did it with a lot of sacrifice, but let me get my street cars going first, and one way or another, if I have to, maybe I'll figure something out and maybe just go out, get it going once and go out once or twice a year. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. And I think that's something to be said too, is that like we all, at some point, I think we all have to return to our roots. And I think that's really important. I think because there was something in that beginning days when you used to race all night. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
We used to go race all night.
Yep.
Right?
And get home at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Right. But there was something in that. The cars weren't as fast.
Mm-mm.
There wasn't as much technology. There wasn't as much on the line. There wasn't sponsorships involved. We had this freedom and we had this love and we got to do it a lot.
But I think the thing that major change is just the cost, and just the funding is not there like it used to be. The sponsors, their
Right.
companies are very leery with the internet and social media.
Right.
They really feel they don't have to go out there and promote like that. They can do it on social media and don't have to spend the money. So it's hard. It's very hard now. And
Right.
stuff like it's not cheap. It's expensive.
Yes,
Very
it's
expensive.
Very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But
even fuel. Let's forget about the racing. How much is it going to cost me to get there just to do the travel?
Right. With the rig, because you
With
still
the
have the
rig,
rig. That
Or
thing-
even if I didn't do the rig, let's say if I had a truck, I had to put diesel in my trailer for the insurance, this and that, to get to the track. I mean, I don't see how you can get there and spend without spending less than $5,000-$6,000.
Right.
I just don't see it.
Right. And
And
I think,
you have hotel, food,
yeah.
and at this stage of the game, as old as I am, I'm not going to drive all the way across country. I got to find somebody to drive the truck, airplane tickets,
Yeah.
because I have the shop. So that's the worst part.
You're
Close up.
You're not
So
making
making
money.
money and spending money.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
It's double whammy right
Yeah.
there. But I think that's why I like hearing that you're like, yeah, I want to do this, but I want to get the street cars running. You know what I mean? I want to get back to roots. I want to get back to the foundation of it all. The RX-2, the Capri. You bought a Capri, right? You got the same car that you had when you were young.
Yes, the exact same car.
Yeah.
Going to be working on that here real soon.
Yeah, that's cool.
And this is how bad it's been. So I'll give you an example. I have a 62 Impala convertible.
Right.
That 62 Impala convertible has either been in the shop or my trailer painted since 1996, ready for me to put it together. It's just the time and the money.
Right.
Either because it was racing, I got started with the R100 racing, so it just sat, and now it's I got to get these other ones before I get to it, and I literally have all the parts to just assemble it because I took it apart and I have all the screws and everything in Ziploc bags, marks. I know where everything goes, but that's just one example.
Wow.
It's at home right now in my trailer.
So you clearly fall in love with cars, right? Like you're never parting with these cars, right?
Well, I'm not going to say never. I will say this. I've had offers before for the R100 and the RX-8. If I don't get back in them and race them, which I don't think that's going to happen. I think I eventually will here soon. And even if I do or I don't, I think I'm going to save him for my little boy. He's going to be 7 in June.
Oh.
I'll just hang on till he's capable of driving and and if obviously he's doing good in school. So if everything works out with him and he's doing good in school and he likes it, then I will save him for him.
Yeah.
And if not, if he shows no interest or something, then I'll sell him. It'll be a time and point where, let's go. They're for sale.
Wow. Yeah. But you've kept him for this long.
Kept them for this long.
So you must love him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I love them. But, there comes a time and point where you got to,
I got 11 cars,
Mm-hmm.
including this. I got 11 cars.
I probably
240s and
have.
CRXs, and I got a tube chassis
I'm
NSX.
right behind you. I
Yeah.
got. Let me see. So I have 2 Capris. I have the RX-7, the RX-3, the other RX-7, the Grand National, RX-8. I got like 9
Okay.
cars.
That's a lot. That's right. That's a lot.
9 cars, yeah.
Right. And how many of them are in like project state?
One of the Capris and one of the race cars.
Okay.
Because the RX-8's ready to go. If I needed to go race at Irwindale Thursday, I could literally go if they didn't care about safety equipment.
Right.
But the R100, I took it apart and it's got some stuff missing. Maybe 4 days worth of work, 3-4 days, and I'd have it running. But yeah, that
Right.
one's in project status right now.
You're doing better than I have. Some of them run. Some of them are in pieces. Some of them are like in a coming back stage.
Oh, and the 62 Impala, so 10.
10.
So yeah, the 62 Impala, that's another one that's a project.
Yeah.
And the Capri actually runs and starts. I got it smogged and registered, but I'm not going to break out with it. I want to build it like what my dream Capri was back then.
Okay.
So I want to keep the 3.8, the 2.8 in it. I'm going to buy I'm going to buy rods and pistons.
Yeah.
I'm already got the crank working. I want to get the heads ported, get valves, and I'm going to make it a draw-through turbo.
Okay.
But I got a friend that's really good with carburetors and a draw-through turbo with the Holley 4-barrel, and I'm going to run it on E85.
Oh, wow.
Period correct.
Wow.
Like I always wanted it to be.
That's cool.
And I got some real nice Hayashi 15-inch wheels, like I always wanted them, deep dish to fill up the whole fares, because back then mine only had 13x8s.
Right.
So it looked kind of weird. They had these real big body flares, but with the small wheel like that. And that's the way they came. That's the way you got them from the dealership
Right.
when you ordered it.
They didn't know about fitment.
Yeah,
back
so
then,
now
huh?
I want it to be right. I want it wherever I go to, they're like, wow, I want to get it painted.
Yeah.
Put a nice interior in it and have the sounds in it like I did in my other one with the big speaker box
With
and
the
the hatchback.
Rockford Fosgate
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Maybe not Rockford Fosgate, I'll change brand, but the same style, same
Yeah,
box.
yeah.
I had 4 10s and 2 12s
Damn, in that little car?
in the little car, all bouncing off of the hatch, the glass.
Yeah, it would bulge, right? When
Uh-huh. And then I think I had Morel mids and Peerless tweeters, so it sounded really crisp and clear. Oh, and then a set of
What was your head unit?
ADS components.
Okay.
Oh, the head units I always had Alpine.
Alpine. Those were the
I
head
always
units.
had Alpine.
I always had Alpine head units
Yeah.
until I got one of those big TV screen computer touch screen deal, and it's Pioneer.
Yeah.
But the Alpines were always in all my cars. Alpines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got some killer sounds in one of my RX-7s now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one has some real nice stuff. So I had some custom ARC audio amps made from like, how long has it been? 6, 7, about years ago.
Right.
The custom signature series, they modified them for me. And then hybrid audio technologies, all mids and tweeds.
Yeah.
And then Eclipse that was only sold in Europe and Japan for high sound quality.
Right.
Special edition Eclipse radio.
Oh wow. Radio?
No, Clarion.
Oh, Clarion.
Yeah, head unit. Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say Eclipse. I got an Eclipse sub
Yeah,
under
no,
the seat up
Clarion,
front.
Clarion.
Yeah. Clarion's good.
It's one of the ones like the Macintosh with the brass or gold encasing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a real high end unit.
Yeah.
Real high end unit.
That's cool.
CD player. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, technology and sound, and I'm not the best with sound. I do okay. It sounds okay, but like there's a whole nother realm to learn with car audio. And some of those guys are just crazy with it. All right, so so now your day-to-day is your shop, right?
Day-to-day is my shop. So my day-to-day is this. I have my pigeons.
Yeah.
And I have some dogs. I used to have horses, but I don't have horses anymore. So my day-to-day is wake up sometime at 6:30, or actually as soon as sunlight breaks. If I'm not that tired, I'm outside. As soon as the sun breaks, I got about 3 hours I spend every day at home with my birds, training them, feeding them, breeding them. And then once I get done with that, I come to the shop to work. And if I'm real busy, which I am right now, most days are like 8, 9 o'clock at the shop or until I get tired.
Right.
And I used to go to the gym a lot. Had a lot more weight than I have now, but when my dad got sick last year and he passed away, you know, I just really haven't been motivated since then. So it's been hard getting back to the gym. But I tell myself that tomorrow, maybe today will be the first day that I go back again.
Right.
And I need to get back in the swings because it's actually affecting me the way I feel.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll do that.
I don't have as much energy and not, you know what I mean? You get tired quick. Even when you're ratcheting something, it's like your wrist, you get tired or you get a cramp.
Feels a
Not
little
like
sore.
before. Yeah. So I got to get to the gym. So that's my day to day.
Yeah. Come in here and just get stuff done.
And I will say this. I love coming to work.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing great about my job, that it doesn't matter if it's my car as a customer's car. I'm excited for every build. I'm excited to finish it, to start it, to test drive it. So that's the best part of me, you know, that I love what I do, and every single project is exciting. You know, I really like it. So it's not like, oh, crap, I got to go to work again. I love building motors, all that stuff. So it's like everything that I do, it's like I think about I'm doing it for me, you know.
Right.
Like I said, and sometimes I'm more excited than the customers to get in and drive them and test them to see how they're going to turn out.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's the cherry on top, right? What are you most excited? What project are you building right now that you're most excited about?
Right now, the one that I'm most excited, there's a couple. There's a truck. It's not here. It's a 3-rotor. It's getting some sheet metal work done. It's a 3-rotor turbo.
Okay.
Street
Wow.
drag truck.
And then Mazda truck?
Mazda truck.
Wow.
Rotary truck.
Yeah.
And the gray FD in there with the 4-rotor, naturally aspirated.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's going to be a street car, has a full sequential transmission, 6-speed, so that's going to be real exciting from the street.
ITBs on it? Or?
No, we're going to have a custom manifold with two throttle bodies and nitrous.
Wow.
Nitrous, yeah, street car.
That's going to be wild.
Street car that he can track.
That thing's going to sound insane.
Yeah, it's going to sound insane.
4-rotor on the street.
I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah. That's cool, man. You light up when you talk about these things.
Yeah.
You light up when you talk about the story. It's you could tell how much passion you've had for your cars and for racing for the entire time. You know, and I think that's what speaks so loudly about you and about the passion you have for putting the cars together, the way they look, the way they run, you know, setting records. I feel like, you know, you're pushing toward records, but I think setting records are just kind of the gravy on top of it all. I think there's something in you that really loves building these cars and loves innovating and loves putting it down.
Yeah, I do. And that's why, you know, people are like, aren't you getting tired of it? Yeah, you physically get tired, but no, I don't get tired. I mean, like I said, I'm super excited when they get close to finishing them, be it a Grand National or Mazda or whatever. You know, I want to get in it and feel it and drive it, see how it's going to feel, and get excited.
Fire up,
start tuning on it, driving it up and down the street, dialing it in.
Yeah. That's the carrot, man. That's at the end of the tongue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. You know, I really appreciate it. Is there anyone you want to shout out to before we call, you know?
No, just everybody. Hope everyone's doing okay.
Yeah.
We need to get more, you know, it'd be nice if we could get some get-togethers.
Yeah.
I'm always excited when I see people either at the track or at car shows or at car meets.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing that, you know, a lot of us know each other, and I don't think most of us, you know, I think when we see each other, we all consider each other like family.
Yeah, totally. I consider you family. I consider, like, Lisa, everyone I sit down with, I consider family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have personal stories with pretty much everybody I sit down with.
Yeah, we spent so much time together at the track or signing autographs or at shows. It was good times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I know. It's such a great era, and it's just like I'm grateful to be documenting it. I'm grateful to be the you know, the host running through and helping to tell these stories, because nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
You know, I mean, you go to shows and you go places and there's a few people, but the whole younger generation, so much time has passed. I mean, you think about it, you know, it's been almost 20 years since like the height of this stuff. You know, the height of the sport compact drag racing, and it's been almost 20 years. Fast and Furious has been out for over 20 years.
Yeah, because when was the first Fast and Furious?
2001, summer of 2001.
Yeah, that was right around there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when everything changed. Things changed after Fast and Furious.
Oh, it sure did.
Yeah, things got really big, really quick after.
I still
Fast.
remember going to, was it at Vegas or was it at Pomona for the NHRA race? And when Tolliver had it on the car, I still remember the announcer.
Yeah.
What's his name? McCullen. too fast, too furious. Oh my God, he kept on saying it over and over. It was like exciting. Everybody was pumped up.
Everyone was going nuts. Yeah. I remember that summer too. It came out. Everybody was street racing. People were bringing their cars out. It was crazy. Yeah. It's the summer I drove across the country and stayed with Paisley out in New York and just saw the whole West Coast, the whole East Coast, how they were doing it. And it was wild, man.
That's one thing I would like to add, for all the younger generation or new generation that are going to listen to this. And, we all have a passion and we all really want to get that adrenaline rush no matter what it takes, that velocity. But one thing I just can't agree with is running on the street,
Okay.
And I've always, that program we had with Toyo Tires, they called Taking It to the Track.
Oh, yeah.
Where every city we went to, the local news station would come out and interview me, and I would talk about why running at the track was much better than going to the street, right in the street. And, when it's all said and done, do you really want to get hurt or hurt somebody else for racing? It's not worth it.
All right.
Even if it happens only once a month,
Right.
Out of 30 times you went there, it's really not worth the risk for anyone getting hurt, not one person or getting in trouble or whatever. So that's one thing I would like to take. I know tracks are hard to find, but make the effort to support your local tracks. So if our local tracks had more support, maybe they'd stick around or they stay open and not close down,
Right.
And we don't get me wrong, we all like to step on it, we all like to feel, but just running on the street and having those type of events and that, it's too dangerous. And I think that does more bad for our sport and hobby than good. It might be good for us, for that night, for that moment, but I think in general it hurts the sport and the thing that we love to do more than it helps it.
Well, how do you feel saying that, coming from street racing? Street racing raised you.
I stopped, but I haven't done that anymore, and I don't do it,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was approached, quite a couple of times to do some things, and I said, if it's involved with the street, I'm not going to do it.
Okay. Do you think you'd be here if you didn't street race?
No.
No.
Definitely not, because that's all there was at the time.
That's all there was at the time.
That's all there was at the time. That's where I grew up. I mean, I was raised on 80th and Central, which is like, as the crow flies, maybe half a mile from Florence and Maine.
Yep.
And I remember when we used to go, like, visit relatives or whatever, we'd come back. When I was little, I was like, why are all these people at the Winch's Donuts?
Yeah.
What are all these people doing here at 12, 1 in the morning, all these nice cars?
Yeah.
And then, as I grew and later, they said, oh, that's the street races. I'm like, wow, I never knew.
Yeah.
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 But also, the street races then were a little bit different than today.
Yeah. Yeah,
See,
true.
that's another thing. Today, it's more, I think, some people are there to hardcore street race, but they take it more as a social status, as a culture.
Yeah.
Where back then, it was strictly a hustle.
Yeah, it was a hustle.
It was a hustle.
Yeah.
They were there to see how much money they can make.
Yep. 100%. That's what I did. 100%.
It was a hustle.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand.
Right.
We were out there for the hustle, for the money.
Yeah.
Now it's to show off, to burn rubber, to do this, to do that, to hang out. Let's go meet some girls. Let me go cruise it.
Yeah.
It wasn't about that back then. It was strictly the hustle for the money. So,
that still exists
different
today. So that still happens. It's just you don't see it. You see it because social media sees everything.
Yeah, you see it, but it's still not the same hustle like we had it.
Right. Right.
There's a lot more BS involved, this and that. You know what I mean?
I was just talking to Driver B about this. People are more sensitive today.
Yeah.
They whine and complain about everything.
Yeah,
Before it used to be like, let's run.
Yeah, let's run. Okay,
Yeah.
what do you want to do? Give me this or give me that.
Yeah.
You either said yeah or no, and you're like, okay, lock up the money and done.
And done. You run.
You run and get it done.
You didn't
go
cry.
back to another spot. You didn't hang out, burn the spot. You know.
You didn't cry about it afterwards.
Yeah, now they want to argue, fight. Oh, I want this or I want that or here. Oh, it's too much. Too many people.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see it right away when it's happening. And because all the cameras, people want to puff their chest more.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that. People respected each other.
Yeah.
You respected the person you raced back then.
Yeah.
It's a little different now. But
I can honestly tell you from when I was probably 15 till the last times when I was still going to Terminal Island, I never saw a confrontation or an argument.
Oh, yeah.
And there was Asian,
Yep.
black,
Yeah.
white, and Hispanic.
Yeah. And we all got along.
Everybody got along.
Didn't matter what you were.
No arguing, no nothing.
Yeah.
There was the shit talkers, which were comedian, and was like if we were at the Laugh Factory.
Right.
But that was their job, to make everybody laugh and talk shit.
Yeah, and it was that you knew it.
But it wasn't like a fighting, talking shit, or arguing, you know?
Yeah. It was part of the hustle.
Yeah, and I've heard some different stories between the Asians, how like the different Asian car clubs or Asian race teams that they had, that they would get into scuffles. But
They would get into it because they were rival gangs.
Yeah. But see, that was more of a gang thing. But as far as like I'm concerned, and I think that wasn't where we were at, because I never saw that in Gardena, or I never saw that, you know, when we would go run over there on Miles or whatever, or Florence and Maine.
Yeah.
I rarely saw any of the Asians on Florence and Maine.
Right. I saw it. I went to Ontario a lot, and I would see it. And I was friends with this crew, and friends with this crew, and friends with this crew, and you know, sometimes you just kind of knew things got weird, you know, and you're like, ooh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I can't really. It's hard for me to turn my back on something that raised me. So that's why I never did the Racers Against Street Racing thing when that went down, and I kind of take a different stance on it. And anyway, did it keep me from going?
And I'm not going to go against them either, but I'm not going to go and be out there and, you know, condone it. I'm not going to participate.
Yeah, you can't condone it too. Shop owner too, you can't really condone it. But
and then especially since, you know, when I had so many companies involved with me.
Right. I like to say is if you can go to the track, go to the track. But if you're going to street race, use some common sense, right? Like if you're going to street race, we always street race far away from families in their minivans. Right, we never raced
in industrial areas
where nobody is around. That's where we took it. We took it to places that were safe. And so, what's your perspective on takeovers? Do you see these things?
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's kind of.
I have a friend that I shouldn't even say this. He's a sergeant. He's a sheriff, and I had to tell him, bro, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why do you guys? And he just said they're overwhelmed.
With takeovers?
There's too many people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a full mob.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous.
Right.
When they first started happening, I'm going to say this was probably, because they've been around for a while. I think the very first one was like 6-7 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
You know what? I was on the 105 freeway.
Oh, you were a part of one. Or you were like, you ran into one.
And the shit stopped the freeway. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Stop. And then I see smoke.
Yeah.
And up in the far, like really, really bad.
Right.
I'm like, what is going on? What's on fire? Then when finally the traffic moved out and I see all these donuts and figures on the ground, and I still didn't know what it was until later on I seen something. I'm like, I can't believe this. These guys are crazy.
Right. Yeah. And that's what they're doing. So I'm looking at it from a perspective of a street racer and street racing. And I know it's not the same.
Oh, but they're burning bad, the street racers.
They're burning the street racers. They're burning the car enthusiast. Everyone's getting lumped into that category, right? If you're driving something that's fixed up, you're kind of getting lumped in that neighborhood. But I'm wondering where it's going to go.
Well,
right? Because
I will tell you this. The city councilmen, they have filed some strict means, and I think from here on out, it's going to be hell for those guys.
Yeah, which
it's only going to get worse because if you may not know or not, a lot of people have died.
Oh, yeah.
And gotten hurt at those takeovers a lot.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering where they're going to go because they have this. I mean, if you threw a takeover event and you put money on like a winner and you judged it or came up with some sort of structure, I mean, that's what everybody's going to. You know what I mean? So if you got all the different, because there's like crews now. There's like takeover crews that go tandem and do donuts together. And the crowd, they're like, whatever the crowd favorite is. It's like, it's evolving into a sport. I wouldn't
doubt if there were some Pro-Am drifters in that bunch.
I don't know, man. I just feel like.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I feel like if you threw like a takeover battle, think about it. People would show up for that, right? And I mean.
Dangerous.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look, there's a sport in South Africa called spinning, right? And they're in these cars doing donuts. And there's somebody jumping out the sunroof, climbing in the doors. They're basically doing that drifting stuff where they're like hanging out the car and doing you know what I mean? Like, but there's a passenger who's doing acrobats, jumping out of the car and leaning out the door and like almost laying their head on the ground as the thing spins around. It's wild, but like. I could almost see where that can go, but I mean, no one in the industry who's older is they're just like, that's terrible, like that shouldn't happen. But like, you almost have to look a little into the future and be like, what if that's the next motorsports? What if that evolves into like the next drifting or the next? I don't know. I'm just looking at it in a very like trying to be objective about it, you know. And I know the mob mentality, the people who are going to looting stores, that's not the people in the cars. Those are the people who are just there watching. And those are people running into the middle of the crowd and getting hit by cars and things like that. So
yeah, I could see maybe like at an Irwindale or a big industrial parking lot where it's official.
Yeah.
You got it cordoned off and all of that. Having takeovers, that style of the wow.
Right.
The liability's got to be crazy though.
Gotta be crazy, yeah.
But yeah, I could see people coming and participating.
Yeah, just go nuts. They had a burn pit at Irwindale for a little bit. I don't know if they have any more.
I think it was part of the Hoonigan thing.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they have it anymore.
Yeah, it's hard, but then it's hard too as you think about how if you're supporting it, how much flack are you going to get? You know what I mean? Like how hard is it going to be for you to put something on like that? People are going to be like, "You're supporting this? We don't want anything to do with it." So, I don't know. It might pop off. Who knows?
You never know.
You never know. All right. So one last thing I like to ask is if you can go back, right? Because this is to our younger generation, who are just at that precipice of doing something, right? If you can go back and give yourself some advice, that younger you, right? What would you tell yourself?
Honestly, and I think about this every day. Cars, racing career, drifting career, everything is great. But the number one thing you guys need to think about is you need to stay in school and get a career.
Right.
And get an education and be a professional. There's nothing that beats education because guess what? When you have a career, you're a professional, you have a good job, you can afford whatever you want to do. You don't have to rely on anybody.
Right.
So the best thing I think that any advice I can give any young kid is you need to stay in school.
Right.
Go to college, get your master's, go as high as you can go so you can have that career and lock your future in so that you can do whatever you want.
Wow. That's good advice. That's deep right there. Yeah. Well, cool. Let's end on that. Anything else? Any other words of wisdom? No? Well, appreciate that. Appreciate you sitting down with me. I'm going to do a little closeout. All right, this has been another episode of Burning Tires, a Buscast. I'm your host, Greg Leone, and thank you so much, Abel, for sitting down with me. Abel Ibarra right here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This is an incredible story. Just, man, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for all the things you do. So, again, thank you for sitting here.
Thanks.
Cool. Woo. All right, and we are out. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. See you guys next time.